Okay. Welcome. Today is the 1st of July. Goodness me, how fast is this year going? This is Vikki here from One Less Thing for our monthly wellness talk, where we talk about everything mental health related. We dive into incredible stories and transform people's knowledge on mental wellness within the community. And this month, I'm really pleased to welcome Katie Rickson. Katie and I have met via LinkedIn and have established a contact and a relationship there. Katie's got some amazing stories to tell. Katie, in when she's not speaking at corporate events, she is a editor and a blog writer. She's also a copywriter and she has lived experience. So Katie's going to share today what her life is like with bipolar. She's going to share what it means to be diagnosed and what recovery might look like and how to be more self-compassionate with people with bipolar. So I just want to welcome you and thank you for your time today, Katie. And perhaps if we could kick it off and maybe you could just introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit more about who you are and what your role is, please.
Thank you so much, Vicky, for having me. It's really like a pleasure to be here, and I really appreciate that you're creating this safe space for people with lived experience. So thank you. Um, so yeah, my name is Katie Rickson. Um, I'm a mum. Our daughter turned 9 just last week. Um, I am a freelance writer and editor, which I love because I get to choose how, where, and who I work with. And I've had bipolar episodes throughout most of my adult life, perhaps starting as early as puberty. But I wasn't formally diagnosed until 2016, after my daughter was born, and I had quite a severe episode postpartum, and I ended up being hospitalized. But through all that experience, I finally was able to get that formal diagnosis of bipolar, and really that was a real changing point in my life as I was able to finally understand what all these things were about, what was happening, and it had a name, and I was able to finally kind of get rid of some of the shame of some of the behaviors that I engaged in when I was unwell, and able to finally start kind of creating my own story and integrating that into my life and my personality. So yeah, being diagnosed was such a turning point.
Yeah, from somebody that also I myself had a career in banking, and to be able to be very severely ill when I had a baby and to be able to get some form of answers on what's
Mm,
happening
yeah.
is a comfort. I can really relate to that and appreciate that because for myself, you've got been given this gorgeous bundle of joy and
Mm,
to feel nothing but sadness and dread. Definitely knew that something was going on, but couldn't
mm,
quite put a finger on it. So yeah, I understand the comfort of being diagnosed, for a better word,
yeah.
and knowing that there's help and hope. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. So bipolar's played a significant role in your journey. Could you share maybe an experience with how it's impacted you throughout your life?
Mm. Yeah. So probably the most extreme time with bipolar was before my postpartum episode, was when I was working at a large corporate, um, and I kind of had the diagnosis of depression and anxiety, um, but I wasn't really on the right medication. But I was experiencing things like insomnia and panic attacks and like suicidal thoughts, really kind of a dark space. But I was also kind of cycling in between being really happy and energetic and bubbly, and really like desperately sad.
Mm.
Um, and I feel like the workplace environment probably contributed a lot to that. Whilst I was working in that corporate, I was trying to get my residency. So I was on a work to residency scheme. So I felt quite trapped
Yeah.
in that space. I I thought, well, I have to stay here, even though it's causing me to feel more unwell. I have to stay here if I want to stay in the country. So there were quite a lot of layers to that. Um, but when I did get my residency, um, I was able to kind of leave that department and find other work and go to university, which was a dream I'd held for a long time. And I was actually able to, I was well for a long period of time, for at least 7 years whilst I was at university. Or maybe it wasn't quite that long, but it was a long period of time. I wasn't on medication, and I felt like I'd found my place when I was studying. I was very happy there, and I'd met my um, husband during that period of time as well. So things were starting to really look up. I was starting to feel that stability. And like I said, I didn't really need medication at that stage. Um, I was thriving in that kind of environment.
Mm. Mm. That's really interesting, and a good topic to maybe talk about is schooling,
Mm,
overcoming some challenges while schooling. I know currently in our schools, and particularly in New Zealand, we have the highest youth suicide rate
mm.
here in New Zealand. So maybe was there any unique challenges within school and everyday life, and can maybe you could share how you've managed to help overcome some of these challenges within your schooling environment?
Mm. I guess I was fortunate in that I have always kind of done well academically. I've always been able to, I've loved reading and writing, and I've loved kind of throwing myself into a good book. Um, Unlike other forms of neurodivergence, it didn't really affect my ability to learn and process information.
Mm.
I guess it wasn't until it was probably outside of schooling that I was impacted the most in terms of the 9 to 5 kind of schedule
Yeah.
and the kind of pressure to be on all the time, the pressure to meet your targets and not kind of um, being able to accommodate your different energy levels. Um, Later on with bipolar, it kind of does affect my working memory a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, but I guess I was fortunate in that I always enjoyed school. I wasn't impacted socially. I did have quite a lot of anxiety, but academically has always been an area which I've felt really kind of confident in. Um, and I think sometimes I felt that strong sense of belonging at university, whereas maybe I didn't feel that so much at work.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I want to talk about, if you don't mind, how now corporates and organizations are talking about ADHD and neurodivergent learnings. How did you feel about coming out publicly and sharing? I know, again, if I can just share with myself, been dyslexic 25 years in the banking sector, and I remember one time having to sit down with the CEO and take some dictation, and the shame that I felt. And when I was able to really talk about the fact that I was dyslexic, very bright, very smart, but my spelling was atrocious, the freedom that I felt to be able to get out and talk about it. Could you please share that with us, how that felt about coming out publicly?
Yeah. And to your point, masking is really exhausting. Like, if you're diverting all of your energy into pretending to be someone that you're not, then
Yeah.
your employee is not getting the full you. So I want to acknowledge like the how exhausting it is to mask and how freeing it is to like let down that mask and be in a space where you can thrive. Um, I I kind of came out in stages, I guess.
Yep.
It's not, I don't think it's like a one and done thing. Um, the first time publicly probably was when I had the opportunity to speak at a service user and academia symposium in Wellington. So
Mm.
that was to a crowd of about 100, 200 people. And I was able to tell a bit of my story about the postpartum. I experienced psychosis after that. Um, so, yeah, it's kind of like getting rid of those layers of
Right.
shame and
Yeah,
like stepping out of silence, and you'll find you're like, here I am. This is me. And it's so freeing. And I feel like it gives other people permission to do the same.
sure. Yeah. We're live at the moment and it's school holidays and I've got a dog scratching at the door. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to step away from my desk for one moment and let the dog
Go
in.
for it.
Thank you for that. That's me trying to be transparent and honest that the dog is scratching at the door. Can you please, now that you're out, you've told people what's going on, and I really love that the organizations are embracing this now. They're embracing and acknowledge that people with neurodivergent learning have particular amazing skills. Um, could you maybe discuss some strategies and some mind shifts and tools that have helped you raise awareness and succeed in life?
Yeah. Um, I think the biggest thing for me is having that self-compassion and being able to teach corporates what that looks like. Um, so I'm not sure if you know of the self-compassion mantra from Dr. Kristen Neff.
Yes.
I really love that, and it talks about when you're going through a moment of suffering, it doesn't matter if it feels big or small, or if it's self-inflicted or someone else has caused it. But I find that mantra really helpful. So it goes like this: this is a moment of suffering. Um, Suffering is part of being a human. May I be kind to myself in this moment. May I give myself the compassion I need. And I really like that, in that, so often when we see people suffering or going through distress, we want to fix it. We want to fix it. We find that the emotions are kind of uncomfortable, but you kind of have to validate it first before you can find that solution and regulate. Um, I think being able to ask questions of your staff, like, um, what do you need? How do you process information? How would you like to receive feedback? Because like with neurodivergence, you sometimes have that rejection sensitivity.
Sure.
So you need to be careful about how you deliver feedback. So it's about being able to ask the right kind of questions, like, what do you need? What's happening for you right now? And being in a position to actually make those accommodations, and being flexible as well. So
Yes.
if I mean, I struggle with early mornings, and like 8:30, 9 o'clock starts aren't great for me.
Yep.
So if employers are able to be flexible and say, okay, we're all right if you start at 10 o'clock and maybe you finish at 5 or 6, but just having those conversations and treating your staff like adults, and finding out what are the kind of routines and rituals that help them
Yeah.
thrive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that a job needs to be done, but being able to be open and honest as to how best works for you to provide the outcome, I
yeah.
think is really, really important. And just on that, maybe you could share a little bit more about how people should seek support if they're concerned about bipolar.
Mm,
Like, for example, they're realizing that they're a little bit sad at times. And with that being said, maybe you could talk about a couple of the side effects that you experience, so people potentially might be able to relate to that.
side effects of the
Of
medication?
bipolar?
Okay, some of the symptoms and
Beg your pardon, some of the
yeah,
symptoms. Yeah.
sure. Um, so probably your first point of call is your GP,
Yep.
and then hopefully they can refer you to a psychiatrist or a psychologist to get that diagnosis.
Yep.
Um, I guess unfortunately sometimes you get the diagnosis for a crisis situation.
Sure.
So I fell under the care of maternal mental health,
Yep.
and they were able to put me up in respite in the community,
Yeah.
and then eventually I was hospitalized. But I think the key thing is to know what your normal is and to have people around you that know what your normal is too.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because sometimes with bipolar, when you experience mania, which is like elevated mood, racing thoughts, sometimes auditory or visual hallucinations, sometimes you might lose that insight in yourself. So you almost need somebody else to advocate for you to get that help.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. It's never ever a one boat ride when it comes to
yeah,
mental wellness. And I think you've just raised a awesome point in that be around people that know you well and they can also a- have a trusting relationship with you and they can tell you that they've noticed this or did you realize that this
yeah,
behavior is taking place?
yeah. And sometimes it's weird things like for me, it was getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning with heaps of energy and wanting to clean the house or bounding out of bed in the morning and cooking a full breakfast. Like in and of itself, those behaviors aren't necessarily dangerous, but they were so different to what I was, how I normally behave,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that it was starting to like raise those alarm bells with my family. And yeah.
Yeah. Maybe if you got a moment, what would a high, a manic episode be for you, and how would people identify that?
Um, yeah, so there's a few things. There's that reduced need for sleep or not wanting to sleep as much. So I experienced a time where even though my daughter was sleeping, I was still wide awake and like I'd been up for 55 hours. So the sleep is a really big thing. There's another experience called hypergraphia, which is pressured writing or pressured drawing. So you literally feel the urge to keep on writing or keep on drawing, and it's not like a nice urge. It's like it it just feels really relentless. And
Mm,
um, the other one is maybe changes in your appetite. Like I was really hungry, racing thoughts. So you might have thoughts just pop up in your head and keep on going, and that's another reason why you can't uh, maybe sleep. You
sleep.
might feel exceptionally creative or productive, and have lots of ideas that you want to pursue. Um, Hypersexuality is one where you seek out all these different sexual experiences, which is obviously can be quite risky and can be damaging for relationships.
Mm,
And another one is wanting to spend a lot of money. So there was one time when I was manic and I spent loads of money and I got into debt. And so it feels like it's just you're doing lots of different things and you're putting yourself into risky situations, and
yeah.
you're doing stuff that feels out of character. And if, yeah,
Yeah, no, I love that you've shared that. So I also work as a support worker, and I've seen manic at its most high and the debt that people can really get into. What about grandiose ideas?
yeah,
Is that something also? Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
yeah, there's that kind of delusions of grandeur, the grandiose ideas. Like when I went into respite, I was like, oh, God sent me here so that I can rescue everybody. Or
Mm,
you feel like you're sent on a plan um, by God, and He's like all the music playing on the radio is directly for you. And um, so you feel kind of really, I felt like heightened spirituality as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so you
I
feel
see
like
that a
you've
lot
got a
as
special
well.
mission, like
Mm.
you're you you've been given this task and you're there to change the world or
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So look, people that don't understand bipolar and don't understand the condition can be quite spiteful because
Mm,
if I, for example, somebody that I was looking after at one point, they were going to head down to Napier and sort out all the gangs. They were going
mm,
to head down to Napier and they were going to be the solution of the gang cycle
mm,
in Napier with no experience and just an idea that spiked into their head. And they got some quite spiteful feedback from family members.
mm.
And so that's why I'm talking about bipolar today. I just really wanted to raise awareness and understand that it's not a life sentence that you have to be down constantly. And I think, Katie, you're a real example of that, of recognizing that when you do have your moments that you're down, that you've got a toolkit now that you can refer to and know what works for you. So I guess my question to you is, what would you say to the general public when they do see their loved ones acting in a way that they might make fun of, as opposed to understanding the illness? What advice could you give to anybody out there that when somebody is at their manic stage, not to be spiteful with their words and to be a little bit more understanding?
I think it's really important to be curious, to be like, rather than um, being judgmental of the behaviors, being like, where is this coming from? What's happening for you right now? Um, Not to ask like, why are you depressed? Because that can come across as quite mean, but to be like, um, I'm really interested. I've noticed some changes in the way you are. Can I just check in with you and see how you're going? Like, how are you? Are you okay?
Mm.
And getting rid of any of that judgment and any of that spite, so that you just show them lots of compassion and be like, I'm concerned about you. I've
Sure.
noticed that things are different. I really want to help you. Is there anything that we can do together? Um, yeah, so that compassion and that curiosity, and not jumping to punishing the behavior,
Yes.
not being like, you're acting really wrong. You know, you need to change or you need to stop. Um, you no, we don't need any of that punishing talk.
Yeah, yeah. So with that, again, we're talking about awareness. You're not the only person in New Zealand that has bipolar, and we spoke about the opportunity to be able to bring it out from underneath the covers. And I know that you're doing some awesome work out there, and you're visiting a number of organizations and going into organizations and just raising awareness. How are people receiving that?
Um, so wonderfully, like it's really humbling to see how engaged people are and how much they really want to know about it. And without fail, every time I've shared it, somebody's come up to me afterwards and said, "Hey, my dad, my sister, my best friend has this," and people have said, "You've helped me see them in a different light for the first
Love
time."
that. Love that.
Um, and that's really what I want to do, because when I was really unwell in that corporate, I didn't know where to turn. I didn't feel like I had any kind of representation of my story. And I think being able to see your story in other people is so, you can just breathe like a sigh of relief, because
Yes.
you're like, I'm not alone. I'm not alone. And there is a way through.
Yeah, I love that too. I love that. It's and when we do start being transparent and honest about it and making connections with other people, that's where we can share information on the message of hope.
Yeah.
That's really what I'm trying to do through these conversations of wellness is just just letting people know that there's one in four of us, up to one in five of us now, at some point of our lives are going to go through some form of depression or mental or a wellness challenge. And it's about now letting people know that it's real and
Mm,
and that there's hope out there and you're not the only one that's going through this. So
mm,
just to keep in time with our half an hour talk here, I just wanted to see if you've got any final thoughts, or if somebody's concerned about their whānau member and they think that they're becoming unwell, where can they go for help? I know you were really fortunate to be able to um, be picked up by I too was picked up by Plunkett, and Plunkett referred me to mental health services. Can you just let us know where people can go to help? And then when we've finished recording here, we'll go out for some questions. I know Stephanie's got her hand up and she's keen to ask a question as well. So where could people go for help?
um, yeah, there's lots of services around. I would recommend going to see your GP. Um, I think it's really important to have a GP that you feel will really listen to you. Um, and if it's not your regular GP, try and find somebody that will. There's a mental health foundation, see mental health first aid, um, and I would recommend going to I think it's Talking Works,
Okay.
um, and finding a therapist or counselor in your area, because the therapy is such a strong part of keeping me well.
Yes.
And
Yep.
I've been seeing my current counsellor in the last for the last at least 5 years. So
Yes. Yep.
um, and yeah, see if you can get referred to a psychiatrist so that you can get a diagnosis. Um, Also look for peer support. Um, I worked with a peer support worker through Mind and Body. They
Mhm.
might have changed their name now, but they're very strength based. So they'll help you set goals and they'll check in with you, and they've got lived experience as well. So
Yeah.
um, so that the three strands, the medical one, so that you can get on the right medication, the therapy, so that you can talk through any issues that you're facing, and peer support, so that you've got somebody walking alongside you that's had a similar journey to you.
Oh, fantastic. I love that you mentioned peer support. I am so proud of the work that's being done in that space at the moment. And I often refer people to peer support. So look, we're going to take Stephanie's question, but we're going to stop recording to do that. So I just wanted to say thank you to our listeners. If you've got any feedback or any thoughts that you'd like to share, please email me or reach out to me. Katie also goes into corporates, and she's available for booking. So you can either touch base with myself or Katie directly. But until next month, just keep well and be real. And I just wanted to thank you for joining our YouTube Zoom here today. And we'll stop recording and we'll head off to Steph and answer her questions.
Thank you, Vikki.
Thank you, Katie.